Serious, parents with a disabled child. Do you ever regret having children? Why or why not? I have a son who was born with multiple problems. No official name for what it was, but chief among them is a congenital heart defect. After he was born, we spent a month going back and forth to the NICU and the hospital. We had 2 other kids at home, so we couldn't just move in like some other parents. When he was released from the hospital, he came home on oxygen, a feeding tube, a physical therapy schedule, and so much medication that one of us was up with him every 2 hours. Nobody in the house was getting sleep. The dogs were relegated to living outside except when we were home, because they decided the oxygen line looked like something to chew on. Don't feel bad for the dogs. Getting the baby out of the house during that time was such a chore that I hardly left anymore. Aside from his many doctor's appointments, all across town, I was pretty much just around to care for him. I had a ton of friends who helped. My regular D&D group moved mountains for us. They started coming over to watch the older kids, even learned the baby's schedule. These were already good friends, but in those months, they became family. Anyway, my son died when he was 3 months old. I wasn't home. Another friend dragged me out shopping. My husband knows infant CPR through his work. He tried. The ambulance arrived quickly. They tried. But in the end, well, there was just too much wrong with his little body. You ask if I regret it. I'm not sure. I waffle on that question. I remember days where I was so tired that I'd function only during feeding and medication times. But I also remember days where I was holding him and everything felt right. Like this is exactly where I'm supposed to be right now. I will say, the night after my son died, I slept a full 10 hours of deep, uninterrupted sleep for the first time in 3 months. And it was the best sleep I've ever gotten. My daughter with Ohtahara syndrome would have faced a life of 24/7 dependent care, for however long she could have lived on a ventilator/feeding tube. This syndrome presents with no possibility of normal brain function from birth. Upon hearing that, my husband and I decided to take her home from the NICU and let her pass with palliative care. We had no interest in keeping her body alive if there was no chance of consciousness. She lived a total of 16 days. Had we gotten a more gray area diagnosis with at least some hope for some kind of life but severe disability, I wouldn't have been able to do it. Just maintenance of the feeding tube was too much for me to handle. Emotionally, especially since we have a healthy son, it would have torpedoed our lives and his. I feel devastated to have lost her but also extremely grateful that her prognosis was so severe. The decision was basically made for us. Unfortunately, they did not find the causative gene, so there's nothing we can test for in future pregnancies. That's the scariest thing. Unless you know what rare genetic abnormality you're looking for, your basic NIP test, amino, or CVS will only look for big chromosomal issues. But rare genetic syndromes can be extremely severe and basic prenatal tests don't pick them up unless you know what gene variant you're looking for. And even then, there's no guarantee the baby won't have something else wrong with it. My brain-dead daughter passed all of her prenatal screenings with flying colors and was even sent home from the hospital a healthy baby who passed her infant hearing test. We're at a medically excellent institution. It just goes to show that rare genetic disorders can't always be tested for or diagnosed accurately. Probably late to the party, but it's my story to tell and sometimes I need to say it. I don't have one. I have 3. All 3 are special needs, 2 on disability, and then the third isn't because we weren't able to get her to cooperate. Regret? Only in so much that I regret that I am their father and probably am responsible for fucking them on a genetic level. I love them because they are of me. Would I do it again? No. I'm not strong enough. The only reason I haven't killed myself is because it doesn't feel right to put my responsibility onto someone else. And if I don't take care of them, who will? I need to be the last to die so I can watch over them. I'm drowning even though they are no longer small kids. There are barely services in the rural South, and I don't have time or the time off to travel an hour plus one way to try and find a counselor for me. I'll be a rock. I'll make it. Just some days. Fuck. Edit. Thank you for the well wishes. It is appreciated. No. My son has a brain tumor. He's had one since he was a baby and he's now 9. It's a slow-growing one in his hypothalamus and as such can't be removed. It caused him to not think he was hungry. He was starving himself as a baby. He's had to have 3 rounds of chemotherapy. At 7, he started puberty. He has an implant similar to Norplant that keeps him from having puberty. It needs to be replaced every year. Insurance is a nightmare. It was fine for a long time, but this past year has been the absolute worst. Luckily, we live near one of the best children's hospitals. They are amazing. Sometimes, even after years, I'll start crying at work. Sure, he's not on chemo now, but it feels like it's best to let it go now instead of when he's on chemo. He's so funny. After the pain of even touching anyone finally subsided and the Pavlovian response from touching subsided, which took longer, he's now also very loving and huggy. He'll still fly into rages at times, but more often he'll hide if he doesn't want to do something. I can't punish him either. What can I do to him that he hasn't already endured 1000x? Take away stuff? Sure, but this kid can sit there for an hour with nothing but his imagination. He does it in the MRI, of which he does every 3 to 6 months. Withhold affection? In the past few months is the first he's actually wanted to touch another human being for more than a couple seconds. Get mad at him? His little body has been racked with pain so severe it has felt like everything is on fire. He's had episodes where his limbs felt like steel and he can't form words. What's a little anger? Another parent here said that it has made her a stronger, better person. I agree. Problems seem so insignificant faced with this. Like creditors are all, your credit score will go down. And unlike, oh no's click, we have a special goodnight kiss /TT nose /fist pump /supernova explosion with sound effects. My daughter and I have one too. It's a kiss /kiss /butterfly kiss /finger waggle /hug for 30 seconds. Every problem is swept away by this, because all you have is this moment. Maybe. Another one later, shrug. Now is better. I have a 4-year-old with mild cerebral palsy. My wife also has identical mild cerebral palsy. The odds of this are astronomical, considering it's a non-genetic disability. However, I do not regret my daughter in the slightest. She's a fantastic little human. Great fun, easy to deal with and compassionate as fuck. She can deal with her kneecap dislocating on a near daily basis and shrug it off like Therese nothing wrong. She falls over on her face daily, has enough bruises on her body to bother any child protection worker and just gets up to keep going. However, I won't have another kid. I don't have the physical or emotional energy to parent another. I couldn't do it. This will probably get buried, but there aren't many real responses, so I thought I'd throw in my 2 cents. I found out during my last pregnancy that my daughter had a severe form of Turner syndrome. She would be born with a heart defect, a kidney defect, and would have been mentally retarded among a list of other things. I was against abortion and wanted to let life play out. So we decided to go through with the pregnancy despite numerous doctors warning us that our daughter would have a terribly tough life. She ended up stillborn at 25 weeks. After seeing her, I felt absolutely ashamed. It was so abundantly clear that she was not built for this world. Had she survived, her every moment would have been suffering. All while waiting for transplants and procedures just so she could keep suffering. All of that, just so that I could feel better about my choice not to make a hard choice while I was pregnant. I'm pregnant again now, and have agreed with my husband that if the same thing happened again, we would abort. It's easy not to do something like have an abortion, but once that child is born, you and the child don't get a choice. The medical system will do whatever it takes to keep them alive, including prolonging their suffering. I should have stopped her suffering the moment I had the chance. That is the truly noble decision and is way less selfish than allowing my child to suffer just for my own pride. I am so thankful that she died. Father of an 11-year-old son on the spectrum with severe ADHD and IDD. He's funny as shit and the most loving person on the planet. More than that, he's his own person no matter what. Wearing boots with shorts. He doesn't give a fuck because he wanted to wear both. Hat pulled down so far it makes his ears stick out. That's how he likes it. He's honestly made me reevaluate my own social stigmas and hang-ups. All of that said, he's the reason we stopped at 2 kids. My wife had severe depression during pregnancy and the safe antidepressant that she was on is now linked to autism. So there's that aspect of it. To edit, it was Prozac that she was on. I'm on mobile and also an idiot, so I can't link the article, but if you Google Prozac link to autism several articles come up. Edit 2. The link between the medication and the autism simply adds another layer to the what-if game. I'm not looking to place blame or even get compensation for anything. I think they simply didn't know back then. Also, it's not a definite cause/effect. Also, I equals intermittent explosive disorder. More or less that means he doesn't get a little upset about something. He has a complete meltdown. He doesn't get a little happy about something. He has the best day of his life several times a day. And probs final edit. My son is very high functioning. He leads a very normal life. He's just a little quirky. Parenting is hard regardless of what your children need, and his mom and I have made plenty of mistakes. I do not regret having him even with the autism. My biggest worry/concern is about how he'll manage living on his own, etc. He's very much like Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy. If we tell him not to run, he starts skipping. He often enforces rules that he has no business enforcing, correcting other people's children or even telling adults that something isn't allowed. It's never a dull moment with that kid. That's for sure. I regret having my 9-year-old with autism and oppositional defiance disorder every single day. I don't care if I get downvoted to hell either. She is very verbal and can be as sweet as a peach when she gets her way. But doing the hard work of parenting her correctly has been a nightmare. She was an unwanted pregnancy when I was a dumb 20-year-old. I was in a lot of psych meds before I realized I was pregnant that I think messed her brain up. I had taken Plan B perfectly like on the instructions the one time I had unprotected sex. I figured that would have been the end of that worry. I didn't realize I was pregnant until she was about 10 weeks gestation and immediately stopped taking my meds, but alas, by the time I could get the money together for an abortion, the closest Planned Parenthood was a 7-hour drive, so no go there. The pregnancy was too far along. I wish I would have looked into adoption now. Bio dad has never been in the picture, and the first 5 years were pretty rough but manageable since I had family help and a super supportive husband. Once she started kindergarten, she was getting suspended from school constantly for stupid shit like throwing an empty water bottle at the principal or hitting her teacher. Her IEP was essentially worthless, and I couldn't hold down a job or go to school because I had no one to watch her. Every single week at random times I'd get called to take her home for 2 to 3 days at a time. So I did what I thought was best, and we packed up and moved out of state with her to a much more supportive area with better schools. We have been here for 3 years and it's been hell. Her professional supports, school, in-home therapist, the community have all been outstanding, but I have no support for myself besides my husband, and we are moving back to our home state in 3 weeks because I'm becoming too ill myself from all of this. She bites, kicks, screams, runs away into traffic, calls us grotesque names when she doesn't get her way. Wednesday I had to call the police because she refused to get into the car when it was time to go home, and when I was finally able to literally drag her kicking/biting/70 pounds ass into the car and close it, she tried to bust the window open. She took an ambulance ride to the hospital and was a little angel for them when she calmed down and they said she wasn't a threat and sent her home. I am very bitter and resentful. I've done everything I can for her to give her a good life. She has in-home specialists come to teach her coping skills 5 hours every week. She is in one of the best school districts in Pennsylvania. I pay for acting and swimming classes for her, but when I sit down and have to discipline her or make her do her homework, I get verbally and physically abused, and there's only so much one person can take when you give and get nothing in return. I feel guilty because her baby brother is neurotypical and we have a very strong bond and I love him more, but I am becoming more apathetic every day to my toxic feelings towards my daughter. Almost always I hope that when we move back home that she gets arrested and ends up in juvenile detention so she can see how good she has it at home with me and so I can get a break from her. I'm always late to the ones I can comment on. Here goes anyway. My son's journey started at 3. He was kicked out of a private preschool. I just thought he needed extra help. Nope. Evaluations through school followed. He got a school diagnosis of ASD. His medical diagnosis of ASD, ADHD, conduct disorder, speech and language disorder, and unspecified emotional and behavior disorders followed. We are still trying to get him the right therapies. During all of the above, my oldest daughter had her first psychotic break at 8 years old. I had been fighting with her school about the physical bullying that was occurring. They wouldn't hear it. Well, she broke, ended up in the ER and then fast-tracked into emergent psychiatry care. She was diagnosed with schizophrenia, PTSD, MDD with psychotic features, and AD. She spent almost this entire month in a mental hospital. She is so much different than before, so flat. They are medically complicated and I love them, but this is so hard. I'm only 32. I'm overwhelmed and sometimes wish I didn't have any children, but I do. So I will keep on keeping on.